I'm Taylor Crouch with Nasco Farm and Ranch based out of Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. Today we're going to be covering a cattle demo with Cal Dewitt. Cal is here in Clinton, Wisconsin. Him, along with the help of his dad, runs CD Show Cattle. Cal, if you could just tell us a little bit about what you guys do here and maybe what you do on a daily basis for your work.
Absolutely. We have a small cow-calf operation here. We'll sell some calves in the fall, and we'll go all the way through the winter season and summer season showing cattle. We'll travel pretty heavily throughout the Midwest, and then basically we'll get ready again, calve some cows out, just repeat the cycle and keep on going.
Then Cal, do you work here on the farm, or do you have a job that you do day to day?
I have a job I do day to day. We're in Springfield, Illinois. I do about, it's called mixed 30 liquid feed, and that's about it.
Alrighty. So Cal, like when you sell these show cattle to 4-H exhibitors and families, are you traveling with them throughout the year helping, or kind of what's your role after the selling portion?
Yeah. So we'll sell the calf, and then we want to offer as much customer service as possible. So we'll go off with the calf. We'll do everything. If somebody wants to text us, ask feed questions, ask daily care things, ask, how to do this in this situation. We always want to be there and be able to respond to them and help them as much as possible.
Alrighty, well, Cal, thanks for that. And if you guys got any questions on show cattle this fall or any questions about mixed 30 liquid feed, feel free to give Cal or his dad, Dan, a call, and we're going to go ahead and jump in on this demo.
All right, now we're going to move into our fitting demonstration. I'm going to talk a little bit about the products that you can use and the kind of the products that I'm most comfortable with. First off, we're going to start with the glue here. We have prime time adhesive and tail adhesive, medium adhesive, and firm adhesive. All these adhesives can be used in an effective way. It's just what you get comfortable with, what you learn with. I'd say like the medium adhesive and the prime time, it's a lighter type glue, so you're actually going to be able to see, beginners use this, be more effective with these glues. As you get more experience, I'd recommend the firm adhesive or the tail adhesive, both personal favorites of mine. I like to use those quite a bit. After we get the leg completely glued up, and like I say, you want to actually use littler glue and more combing action. Last thing we want to do is get a glued mess up on these legs. But once you do get your glue done, we're going to move into our paint. We're going to lightly paint with white, and the reason we're going to do this is just to see you're going to be able to see all the hair follicles come out. It's also going to build the leg, and then after that, we're going to let that dry on there, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to use some powderful. And this is going to build the leg. I just like to use a little bit of this at first, and then I'll go ahead and I'll start clipping the leg. Slowly use our clippers here. All these different tools we can use. This is a pig brush right here. We'll use that to clean our clipper blades off. When we're gluing the legs, I like to use this right here and this. This is good for when I'll show you this in a little bit here, but when you're wanting to make a fin on the backside and tighten it up, I like to use that. The different combs for different hairstyles. I like the fluffer usually for my go-to, I guess. This type of hair is longer and stringier, so I like to use that. If you get a shorter type haired animal, you're going to want to use a full tooth comb. But once we're completely done, we get our glue up, we got our white paint, we got a little bit of powderful in there, and we clip that leg. Then we're going to go back and we're really going to want to let this leg dry. And then we're going to, after it's dried a little bit, 5 minutes or so, we're going to put a jet black on there. This is our first layer of paint, and we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to put this paint on there just layer at a time. After we have this paint on there, we'll go to a finisher. We'll let that dry for another 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and put the finisher on. Like I said before, we can get all these products at Nasco, anything from the clippers, combs, adhesives, all the way down into our Pro Pinks and our Flare. I like to use these when we go right before we're going into the show ring. This is going to help pop that hair. It's going to give them a little glossy look, a little shine. Very important. All right, we're going to get into fitting this calf now, get some live action. The first thing we want to do when we get this calf in the chute is put that show halter on. We talked about that already, but that's the first thing we want to do. And the reason we want to do that is just because once we get done fitting this calf and we're ready to go to the show ring, sometimes you can get crunched on time. The last thing you want to do is be throwing that show halter over the top of them, and you're having to deal with the calf just getting a little uneasy. This way, if you put the halter on them now, when you go to take them out of the chute, it's going to be an easier transition. Now, the reason why we want to fit these cattle, now we want to make sure we do this the correct way, and the whole purpose of doing this is to better the calf. We always want to keep that in mind. So I always like to take a step back before I fit any animal and take a look of, all right, how do I change this, or what needs change, and how am I going to change it? If our leg's a little too straight, if we need more set to our pastern, how do I change that accordingly? How do I better this animal? How do we adjust the tail head and lay that in there correctly? If we need more belly, how do we get more belly in there? We want to pull down that hair, make sure that flank's good. We just need to keep in mind, really, we always want to better the animal. And I think a lot of times, if we're inexperienced at it and we don't do it correctly, it can make it not as good as it kind of can defeat the purpose almost. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. I like to kind of just brush on the animal here first, let her know I'm here. I'm going to be, combing on her and working on her. Then I'll work my way down. I'll work my way down to this back leg here. We're going to use the adhesive. I'm using firm adhesive here. I like to just test spray it, make sure we have a good concentration coming through that nozzle there. We're not all beaded up. We got a good consistent bead. I'm going to comb through here, make sure she knows I'm here, make sure there's no gnats in her hair, and I'm going to start gluing. And what I want to keep in mind though is, little glue, more combing. So I like to do like a 1-2 usually, and then comb, and a 1-2 and then comb, and get it where I want it. So I like to start on the front side here. It's just a personal opinion. And I like to get on the back side and start making this fin. I'm trying to pull this hair forward. I want to make the leg as big as possible, but I want to make it as 3D as possible. We want to make sure this leg is going to look good from all angles. So I see a lot of people wanting to try to get a strong fin in front, which I think that's important. But if you're coming from the front and looking at it, you're going to see a fin down the front of it. If you're on the back side and you got a fin on the back side, you're going to see a fin. We want to keep that leg full and three-dimensional as possible. So that's what we're going to work on now. So I kind of have this front side filled out. We don't have a ton of hair up here, but what we're going to do is, like I said, we're trying to keep this full as possible, but also be able to have enough hair where we can put our line into it or the correct shape into this leg that we want to from the side profile. Then I'm moving around. I'm working towards the back side of the leg. I'm using just a little glue here to pull it up and getting it to stick straight out. I don't comb a whole lot here. I just kind of get it where I want it, and I'll come back to it. And then I'm going to come back on the back side of this leg, and I'm going to start to create what I would call a fin, but wanting to keep it full, I'm going to pull it back here. I'm going to pull this hair back towards me, using very light glue at first here. And if we don't use light glue, it's going to compact really fastly on you. So now I'm keeping in mind, all right, what are our angles here? I kind of got the hair pulled the way I want it. Now, where do I need to concentrate? This calf's got a good set to her hock. She is pretty sound, real sound animal. Good set to her pastern. What I'm going to do is I'm thinking I'm going to take a little hair out right here, and then I'm going to also take her hock tighter here and give her some shape to her pastern on the back side of it. So keeping that in mind, it's going to be harder to clip through here if I got a bunch of glue. So I want to keep the glue light there, and also right here where I'm going to be taking off a good amount of hair. I'm going to finish gluing this up here quick. Now I have the leg pulled to where I want it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some white paint on it, very little bit of white paint. Like I said before, we're just going to do this to bring out the leg, bring out the individual hair follicles, and actually start building the leg a little bit. So I'm going to make sure this is good and shaked up before I start spraying it. And when I do this, I just like to spray up in here a little bit, and I like to make a V almost on the hock. So that way when we go to paint this calf with the black, it's more of a transition. Everything flows a little better. So I don't like to get white paint all the way up into their quarter here. I like to keep it lower and more of in a V shape, which you'll see here in a second. There's your white paint. All right, we're going to start into clipping this calf, but first what I want to do is talk about the clippers that we got here and the blades that we'll be using. We got an Andis 5-speed. It's my favorite clipper. There's 5 speeds to the clipper. What I'd like to use is the fastest one. You can use it on different speeds if you'd like. It's just what you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with a fast one. I find it to get the best cut possible. Then we're going to move on to our blades. And for fitting specifically, as we're going over, I like to use the super blocking blade or the X block blade. Both are very efficient, I think, and you can get all this at Nasco. They have a selection of the 5-speed, 2 speeds, all different kinds of blades there. I encourage you to go over there and stop in. So we're going to get into clipping here. I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what I'm going to do first. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start with clipping this hock down. I want to keep an idea of when I get behind this animal that her joints are going to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to take this down, I'm going to take her ankle joint down, and it's going to leave this longer. And then after I get those two down, I'm going to take the middle here and I'm going to match it. I'm going to blend it all in. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to move around to the front side, make my line on the front side. Like I said, I'm going to straighten off this a little bit and then give this calf a little more set, and then I'll get to the back side and I will make a line on the back side, more of a vertical line, and then I will get down here and round it off and give that set to that pastern. And as you can see, I like to put my hand, I hold it with my right hand because I'm right-handed, but I like to keep my left hand on top of my thumb. It keeps me more steady. So I have the hock to a point where I think right now it's good enough. I'll probably come back to it. I'm going to go ahead and do this ankle now. Easy, girl. Now I'm just blending this in here to the hock again. Then I'm going to rotate over to the front side of this. Take off the long hairs, blend it easily. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the front side of this leg. I actually like it when they have their leg back like this a little bit. It helps me clip it, just how my preference is. And as we get that closer, I'm going to leave that be and come back to it here in a little bit. I'm going to work on the back side, make sure I get the shape I'm thinking I want on that side before I take any more off on the front. That way if I need to adjust the front, I can. So what I'll do after this is I'll put my clippers down, I'll come back and maybe hit it with some glue again. I'm going to tighten my fin on the back side right down here. While I'm doing this, I'm keeping in mind I want to keep this thing 3D as possible. So we're not going to take the fin, the whole fin itself tight, but we're just going to take the ends of it tight. All right, now I'm to the point where I got the big hair off. Now it's just kind of the fine tuning parts of it. I can go ahead and actually, I can start building this leg a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and use this white powerful. Just lightly going to put it in there. Nice and light. I'm going to use my pig brush here. I'm going to clean off my blades because there's some glue on there. And we're going to go back ahead and start fine tuning on this leg and really putting the shape that you want to get into it. I'm going to come back again and just tighten this up one last time, and we'll be pretty close to being done here. And there's kind of a quick do of our back leg, I think. We're pretty close here. If we're getting ready for a show, I might get a little more critical on the side here, or on the front side there. What I do want to mention, though, it is important to come back here and check it out. You can see the hock to the ankle is nice and flushed. It's smooth. If you get back here, though, you want to make sure you do the inside of this leg. It looks really good from the side angle, from the front angle, and the back angle. But except for when you are back here, the inside of the leg isn't clipped yet. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to move her tail to the side and clip this. And when you clip that right there, you really want to make it match this side. So you want it to be straight up and down. You don't want this hock to look like it's pushing out. I mean, they're going to make it look bow-legged that way. So a lot of times you want to leave extra hair right here in the inside of the hock, and then blend it from the ankle up, and then go up into your inside of your quarter here and blend that. But that's your back leg, and that's how I'd recommend doing it. All right, we got our back leg complete. Now we're going to move on to our front leg here. Same concept really, is we're going to use the adhesive first. I'm going to pull the front side of this leg first. I'm going to actually start on the back side here and pull it towards me. It's about a 45-degree angle towards me. So you got to lift and it's coming at you. While keeping in mind, the biggest thing is keeping this thing 3D and looking good from all angles. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back at it away from me at a 45, and I actually will keep it pretty simple on the back side too, and do the 45s on both sides coming at me and going away from me, and then pulling this middle up and making these joints flush again and smoothing them up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start on that. What we do want to keep in mind though is on this front side we want to put almost like a banana shape. So we're actually thinking of the point of the shoulder and the knee here. We're going to keep this out. We're going to try to give as much set to the knee as we possibly can, and then we're going to smooth it back down like a banana. And on the back side, we're going to put a straight line on the back side and maybe a little bit of angle to the dew claw down here, just depending on the calf. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And like I said, you want to use less glue than more. That way it pulls up nicely and we don't have a gummy mess, per se. And the front legs, you're going to deal with a good amount of colics as well on that knee or even down here. You just got to keep combing and keep rushing through it. I think that's important. Like I said, glue always isn't the answer, but finding the way that hair needs to lay right, and the only way you can do that is by keep combing and keep trying. Okay, so we have this leg fairly close here of how we want it glued. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint this leg here. White paint, just regular white paint. What I'm going to do is the same concept as the back leg. I'm going to make that V shape. Again, this is why we are wanting to, the V shape is for when you go to paint this animal, the transition of the black paint. We want to make it look as natural as possible. Last thing we want to do is get a bunch of lines on the front side, back side of these legs and not be natural. Then we start to look fake. We want this animal to go in the ring and look as natural as possible and as flawless as possible. So we're going to let that dry now, and then I'm going to go ahead and clip on it a little bit. I might comb through it a little bit and just put the hairs where I want it now that I can see it a little better. But we're going to let this dry for a second and go ahead and clip. All right, now we're going to start clipping this leg. What we want to keep in mind is the angles, and like I said, we always want to better the animal. So we're going to take down the knee here. We're going to take that tighter, give that nice banana shape to the front of it. And then we're going to keep this line a little straighter. So we're going to leave more hair here and take more hair off here. And then when we get in behind it or from a different angle from the back side, we're going to want to smooth up these joints, their knee joint and this ankle joint, and make that nice and smooth and have a good transition into the shoulder. So we're going to go ahead and start clipping here. All right, so we got the front side pretty close here. We got our banana shape, set to our knee. We're going to go ahead and work on the back side of this leg now. Like I said, we're going to take most of the hair down or up here off, just so we can bring this out and make it all blend together. Well, that's what we're going on. I think it's really important that when you're clipping this, you step back and you look at it, and you just look at what you just did, and make sure like you know what your next move needs to be, and you can go ahead and blend this section with that section. Now you know you got to take this middle part down here. And we're going to go ahead and tighten up this again with some glue. All right, now we got our glue tightened back up. I'm going to go back over the back side of this leg, fine tune it, make a nice line down it, and we should be pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and put some powderful on it. I'm actually going to spray just a tidbit of glue in there. It's going to help hold this powderful in place. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to come back to it eventually here. We're going to work on the flank next, but what I want to make sure that we know is, ideally, now that we're doing the demo, it's not ideal, but in an ideal situation when we're getting ready for the show ring, I'm probably going to go back and I'm going to put a layer of paint on the back leg. And actually, if I'm done with this leg too, I'm going to put a layer of paint on that. That allows it to start drying. Once it dries, you can step back and look like, all right, I need to apply more, I need to make it darker. We're going to make it match the animal as best as possible. So I think it's important to put it on layers, let it dry, because when you put that paint on, it's almost got a wet to it. So when it dries, it's almost a different shade than you're used to or what you see right away. So that's why I think it's very important to let it dry, let it take some time, step back from it, look at it, go back into it and paint it again. So we're going to move on to the flank next here. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about what the flank is. The flank area is from the navel back, and the navel back is right here. This is where the navel's at, and back here to the udder. In between these two spots is the flank. So why we want to pull down this hair and fit it? Well, we want to put the right belly shape into this animal, give it more of a show ring look. The silhouette of that calf is going to be better looking and more complete looking when we pull that flank down. What I like to do first when we do this is take my fluffer comb, my skip tooth comb, and I like to comb the whole belly. I'm going to comb the whole belly towards me, and I'm going to get to this flank, and that's where it's going to change a little bit. I'm actually going to take it and I'm going to comb it down towards the middle of her belly line or towards her udder, and then I'm going to bring it back to me. So we're going to make a nice fin down the center of her belly. And it's important to get that line in there before we put any products in there. As soon as you put glue in there, you almost very rarely want to touch it with a comb again. It's going to start to knot up if you keep combing it. That's very sensitive hair, I'd say. You can comb on it in one situation, that's only when the glue is very dry in it. So I got this set to where I want it. I like to step back and look at it. I know it looks pretty good where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and put a light layer of glue in here. This is a situation where you can change glues from a tail adhesive or from a firm adhesive, and I'd say you can almost go to a lighter glue, like maybe like a medium glue like this here, or a prime time glue. Either or works. So we're going to go ahead and just lightly spray this. Like I said, it's very important to let that dry. Before you want to do anything, just let it dry, let it sit for a while, because it's going to be a sensitive area to clip, I think. So we're going to let that dry here. Meanwhile, we're going to go up to the tail head here, and we're going to start working on that. I'm going to go back to our firm adhesive here. It's a little stronger. This calf's got a little bit of a tricky tail head. We like to put a line down the side of it. We call it a part. The reason we do this is just because you can get a lot of colics in this area. So we like to put 2 lines from the center of its back all the way down. And where you gauge where that line is when you get off to the side of that calf, you want this hip to look as square as possible. So you want this line to be up higher usually, in most cases. If you get it low, if you get this line, I'll show you guys, if you get this line down here and you step back from it, that calf's going to look round from the side. So we want to keep this line up here and up tight. And this is something to really practice in the summertime. As you're growing hair, it's a harder type of hair, you put these lines in here and then you eventually will work it forward as the hair grows. So we're going to get back to fitting this tail head quick, but I think that's an important point to make. I like to start down here, and then I like to start, then I'll move to here next and then finish my middle part. And at first I'm going to keep this glue pretty light as well, because I'm going to have to do a decent amount of clipping on it. And you just got to remember, when you're getting more glue in it, it's going to be harder for them blades to go through that glue. So we're going to keep it pretty light here. And for me, don't be afraid to use your hands. I like to use my hands in this situation, kind of get a tighter fin on it. Clips better for me. Another thing we want to keep in mind when we're gluing this tail head is I want the back side of this tail head to be in line with the center of her back and the center of her pole. So as I'm making this line on the back side, I'm keeping in mind that it's in the middle or in the center of her pole. That way when this judge walks in behind the calf, it's each side of this calf is well proportioned and balanced. All right, now that we got that done, we're going to let it dry a little bit, and then we're going to go back to clipping. And actually what I'm going to do is, before we let it dry, I'm going to spray a little white paint on this flank and on this tail head here, and we'll let that dry as well. Then we're going to spray some white paint up here. There you go. And I really just like to hit the tips of this. I don't like to get way down in there, and as we talk about that paint again, it's about that natural look. If we get this so built with white paint, it's not going to look right when we come back with the black. So I want to just hit the tips of that as much as possible. I don't want to get all the way up here with the white or way down here on it. I just want to hit the tips of that and let it dry, and we'll come back to it and clip it here in a second. All right, now we're going to clip this flank. It's dried real well. We're going to get right into it. Like I said, from the flank back, we want to fit this part, and which we have. We've glued it, but our whole objective is to keep this underline as deep as possible and keep it full looking, but also give it some shape. If we get this flank too low, it's going to look like the calf's fat, and so by giving it a little shape, it's going to make this calf's silhouette look appealing. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you what I mean here. When I'm doing this, where my glued area is on this flank, I'm taking this blade and I'm going straight into it. I got the back side of it up like this. I'm going straight into the glued hair. So I'm going to take a look back here and see what I need to change a little bit. Looks like I need to bring the center of my flank up a little bit, and we should be close. Then I'm just going to complete the rest of this belly and make sure it flows up through her heart good and up into her chest floor. Alrighty. Next we're going to get to the tail head again. We've let that dry. Our flank looks good. We can tweak on that a little later once we get closer to painting it. First and foremost, what I'm going to do is work on this top a little bit. I'm going to get the top to where I want it. I'm going to blend it from the top of the withers of the calf back here to its grow bone, and I'm going to work on all that. And then once I got to that and I'm comfortable where it's at, I'm going to go ahead and blend this tail head in. Oh, I'm right-handed, so I like to go to the left side of the calf and work on that side. And this is kind of all preference on how you want to handle it. I'm going to go ahead and comb this hair up. I'm going to start up here by the withers and just flatten this out a little bit. So we're going to keep working our way back here and just keep blending it on back. And one thing I do want to mention is I like to keep the cord around my neck because when I'm doing this top, it's not going to be hanging in my top and leaving a line where the cord's at. So now we're going to work our way back around here and start looking at the tail head. We're going to see what we are kind of from this angle. You can see now what you've done, where you need to go back over. We've gotten it closer, but there's definitely some spots I'd like to maybe touch up on right in here. And then obviously we still got to do this part back, which we're about to do. Now I want to explain also this tail head and how we want to shape it. We want to keep in mind we want this hip to be as built correctly as possible, and when I say built correctly I mean square. So hooks to pins, we are square, we are level. So we want to keep that in mind when we're doing this tail head. It's all relevant, and also how long we keep this, we want to keep in mind that it stays in proportion of the size of the animal. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to make a pass on top here. I'm going to do it where I think it's close but not exact. The last thing you want to do is take too much off because you can't put it back on. Back on there. And on the back side of it, I'll come back and I'll say, all right, I'll look back at it and finish it and round it off a little bit up here. then you can see when you step back that that line where I've glued it, there's been an area where it's broke apart. When I mean that, it's right here. If you get up on top of this animal, you can see where it's kind of broken apart. I'm going to go ahead and glue that again and stick it back together and clip it once more. All right. I'm going to work on the back side as that dries up there. And what I'm going to do is kind of draw a line here from what I find right to fitting this line up here. It's going to be about right like this. We're going to try to square it up to the tail, to the top of this, and then round this part like it kind of is already. We're going to follow that same shape, but to connect the two lines. I'm going to move back here quick. I always like to go from this angle. I like to bring the clippers towards me when I'm clipping the back side of this tail. It's just what I feel most comfortable with. Some guys like to go like this. Like I said, I like to do this. It's just what you're comfortable with. So we got the back side somewhat close here, and we're going to go back to the top side, and I really like to make sure that's done right before you complete the back side of it. I think we're pretty close here. All right, now we're going to do the tail here. We're going to do what we call ball the tail. The first thing you want to do is comb through it, make sure all the knots are out of it. We've kind of already done that here, so like I said, we're going to comb through her. And the biggest thing to this is I'm going to pull it out, and before I even start, that I want to keep this in line with her chest up front and her hock down here. So I want this tail to end up to being about right here. So this way, when you get off the calf, it seems balanced, and it looks more proportional and balances up better. So I'm going to find the end of this calf's tail. I'm going to put 2 fingers at the end of it, and then after that, I'm going to start taking the hair right above that, those 2 fingers. Easy, girl. And just take that layer of hair off, or up. Pull that up. So we're going to leave this hair pulled up here. I'm going to have you hold that there. And then what we're going to do is called tease this hair down here. And what we're going to tease it is because we want to make it a little bigger. I like to do it with my fingers. Some of you like to use the comb. I'm just more comfortable with doing it this way. Biggest thing is just with a lot of this is just finding out what works best for you and how you can get to that point. We're not going to get crazy here with it, but we're going to get a little more teasing going on. And once I got it, for the most part, where I think I'm wanting it at, I'm going to take this glue, I'm going to go all the way around it, and then I'm going to shape it with my hands like this. I'm going to shape it like as a dumbbell. And remember now I got my dumbbell, and I said I want to be right about where that hock's at, that point of that hock. I'm going to fold it up and match it. All right, next I'm going to spray this with one more layer of glue. I'm going to let her let down the hair once I do that. I'm going to use this brush to pull it all down with. All right, you can let that go. And you can actually be pretty aggressive with this now. I'm going to spray it one last time here and shape it around it. We're pretty close now. And I like to make sure this transition is smooth as well. So I'm going to spray actually a little bit up here. Just feed this nicely down in here so it all transitions. So we'll go ahead and let this dry, and we're going to start painting after that, and she'll be off to the show ring. We're going to go ahead and paint this cap, and we're going to get her to the show ring. We're finished with clipping, fitting, our final steps to paint it and get some sheen on it, or some spray, and get it shined up and ready to go to the ring. Our first step is we're going to use this base black. We can use either or brand. What I do is just make sure we shake the can well, do a little test spray, and go ahead and just follow that white like you did for the first time. Now on black cattle, I do like to paint their hooves black. If you have an off-colored calf, I think it's better off to leave them the natural color they are. Maybe even put a little final bloom on them or a little pro gloss on there. to shine them up a little bit. And like I said, we want to do this in layers. So we're going to let this dry now, and I'm going to move to the flank here. Get that nice and painted. I'm going to move to this front leg. We're going to use this base black just so you can see the difference a little bit in it. This to me is a really dry paint. You can't put too much on. It seems like it's real dry. If you take this paint and you put a lot of it on in one area, you got to be careful because it can get globby on you or real shiny. So those are our two paints there for our base blacks. And then I like to go over it with this finisher here. We'll do our tailhead last. And in a perfect world, we're going to let that dry a little bit. But since today we're going to just go ahead and paint this quick to show you what we do. Go over with the black finisher, our final paint. And then we don't want to forget to paint our tail as well. And we might hit that with glue once again once this dries. And it should be good to go then. We'll put some flare in here. Or if we had some Pro Amp or Pro Gloss, we could put that in there as well. Pro Pink, it's just a real light layer. Sometimes I like to use a blower to blow this in. For today's purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and spray it and comb it in there. And I always like to spray it on their head as well, just to shine it up a little bit. And I'll actually take my hand and rub that in, because that's usually pretty slick up there. And then we'll just blow on this calf for a while, work its hair, and take it to the show ring, and we'll show it. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're done with the show today. We're going to break down this calf. These are the two products we're going to use here. First, I want to give you a situation, though. If you were to win your breed early on in the day and you want to break down this calf, let her lay down, give her some rest before we go into the final drive. If we're going to do that, we want to use this product right here, Pro Refit. This is a product that sprays right in like your adhesives do, and it's going to leave a drier effect to this animal, and it's going to allow them, when you come back to refit this calf or redress this calf, to have a more successful and a fresher look to that leg. Now, if we're done for the day and we're going home, we're loading up the trailer, we're going home, we're going to use Pro Remover. And the reason we're going to use that is it's going to leave a little greasier residue to the animal. And I think that's good because it's going to act as a like a conditioner to that skin and really help with getting it back in the rejuvenated form for it to get back on the farm and getting its daily routine. So we're going to go ahead and start doing this process a little bit. I'm going to show you both of these. First, we're going to start with a Pro Remover. And I just like to spray a nice, I like to be pretty generous on how much I'm spraying actually. I like to go all the way around the calf. And I'm going to let that sit there for a second. But as it kind of soaks in, what I want to do is run one of my combs through it. Ideally, you want to use a plastic comb to run through that leg. And then after I'm able to run through it with a plastic comb, I'm going to go ahead and take a scrub brush and run through it that way. And if it's still a little tough, you can just add more. Always add more. And you can just feel it give away and break down that glue and adhesive and paints. So we're going to let that settle in there for a little bit, but I'm going to demonstrate on the front leg this refit. And what I want to make sure is that when we spray this on, it's going to have a similar look to this right now. But when I was talking about the residue left on the leg from this versus this being drier, it's when we actually blow this calf out and get it completely dry again, that you won't see the residue or the greasiness left to this calf with using this product. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the Pro Remover with the refit, and we're just going to comb through it nice and easy. Try to be as gentle as possible, as it can be a little sensitive on these guys. If you don't have it completely enough product in there to break it down, it can pull on their skin and get sensitive. So we comb through that there, and we allow it to soak in a little more. I'm going to finish off doing the rest of this with a Pro Remover since we're not showing again, but that's how we do that.
All right, guys, I want to thank Cal Dewitt for taking part in our demo presentation today. Cal and his father, Dan, are running a real nice cow-calf operation here in Clinton, Wisconsin. Cal's a bright young star here in the show cattle business, and it's nice to be able to call Cal a friend and also a customer of Nasco. So Cal, I want to thank you for your help today.
Absolutely.
In promoting our products and educating our youth that we're selling to.
Absolutely. I'd like to reach out to you and your whole Nasco crew you brought today. It's been a fun time, and I thank you guys for coming out here, and hope we can do more in the future.